Hey guys, this trip has been phenomenal for me, obviously, because as a lot of you know, this was my first time returning back to the country that I was born in. And the crazy thing is, obviously, some people, people know, but I left the country, Democratic Republic of the Congo, with my family at the age of 1 as refugees. So to have the opportunity to come back, me, for the first time, and preach the gospel, that's my first homecoming thing. I think it was, I don't know, it was just it's so the Lord, how the Lord put all that together. And I remember actually praying in Zambia on a mission trip, because my dad was in the Congo, and my friends, some overland friends, are telling me oh, they just did their first expedition in DR Congo, and you should talk to the team that just came down. And I was like, oh my gosh, anyways, I remember praying to the Lord. I was like, man, it seems like every time I go to Africa, I'm getting closer and closer to the Congo, where I'm from, DR Congo. I would really like to do a mission trip in the country that I was born. A few months later, I get a call from my friend, Faith, and she was like, hey, Grizel, we're doing an expedition. You're the first person I thought of, and you're the first one that I thought to call, and I want to know if you're interested. I was like, H to the yeah. So honestly, listen, every trip, I trust the Lord to provide, but even the provision part of this trip was worth testifying about. I have seen the most provision come out of this trip, but the least givers. Not that I'm I burped. I kid you not, this was the largest seed I've ever sowed in my life. And I was at the age of 22, it was January. And, I thought, it's time to grow up. It's time to sow large seeds. I want to be a big giver when I grow up, and it's a time that whatever. So I sowed the largest seed I've ever sowed. It was a $700 seed. Okay? And I'm a college student, by the way. And kid you not, a $2,000 return came back to me. Somebody, a friend of mine, you know who you are, texted me to cover the rest of the expense of your trip. Just give me the amount. And it was a ballpark amount. And I told them, I was like, hey, this is really a ballpark. The price could change because things just happen. And they did. But this person literally sowed $2,000 towards my trip. So obviously I felt like, maybe God, you really want me to go on this trip. There's a wasp on the ceiling. Thank you. Wonderful. Awesome. Let me just set the foundations of just everything that this trip is supposed to be and what this field looks like. So the organization that I went with is called Overland Missions. And Overland Missions' objective, I should say, as an organization, is to go in unreached people groups. Is it people groups? Well, parts of the world where the gospel is not easy to bring to, where people don't hear the gospel because they're so deep in the forest and trenches and stuff like that. So they go, any load, I don't know the saying, but they go. So there's people that we talk to that don't own a Bible. They've never owned a Bible. They hear about Jesus, or there's no way for them to hear about Jesus. And it's just a shame that someone could live a whole lifetime and not know about Jesus Christ, not know about the things that we as Americans or believers with Christianity so easily accessible to us. I will say, for this specific sector, Overland has been trying to reach it for a while. My country is huge. I think it's the second or third largest country in Africa. It's huge. And we're kind of corrupt, just a little bit. And so they've had a really hard time not only getting in the country, but just kind of getting like a foothold in the land to bring the gospel in. The trip that I was on was the first public expedition for this country. Anyway, so the ground is fallow. There's corruption everywhere. It's running rampant. And the gospel needs to come in. So, 67 salvations, 12 healings, 1 deliverance. And that's just in the villages. That's just the house to house. That does not include at all the kids ministry, the night meetings, because number one, who is going to count black people in the dark? Who is going to count the black people in the nighttime? It's not going to be me. And there was a lot of kids that showed up to the kids ministry. There was a good number, it varied every night that we did the night meetings, of the people that showed up, number one, and number two, gave their lives to the Lord. And, and we prayed for it. There was healings even in the night meetings. So it was a powerful, powerful time, to come in and tell people about Jesus. Or somebody was like, oh, I'm a Christian, but I don't know anything about Paul. Can you tell me about Paul? It's not like they have a Bible to find out and read the book of Acts. No. Okay, testimonies. So there's so many testimonies. I cannot tell you all of them. Nobody has the time. Well, you could. If you wanted to know, I wouldn't know, because there's so many teams that we split up into ministering, and I don't even know all their testimonies. But I will say I heard like a testimony that was like these two people on our team like went, like it was Julie and Mike, and they went, and then Mike saw some guys sitting under like some type of like seating area where there's like grass covering or like a leaf covering or whatever. And then they talked to the people, prayed for them. I think they gave their lives to the Lord. And the guy said, this is exactly how it was in my dream. So the guy had a dream that he was talking to Julie and Mike underneath, like exactly where they were sitting, like the location. And because of the dream, they got up and walked to this place and sat and waited. And they were just like, okay, tell me, like, Jesus. And that person got saved. Are you kidding me? So anyways, I wasn't there, but that's what they shared around, little circle that we had. My favorite testimony, because I was talking about how people don't have Bibles or whatever. So we went to this house, and it was just like a couple of guys, maybe 3 or 4 guys, and they were out of work and were just chilling. But they were like, they weren't Christian. They didn't go to church. They weren't like plugging themselves in. Like there wasn't like an active relationship with the Lord or whatever. And we're like, okay, cool. And he was like, one of the guys were like, well, we work, but we don't get paid. And if we do get paid, it's not the full amount. So he's just like, what's the point of working? And they were like, you're Christians, like if I give my life to the Lord, will God give me money? Because I try praying and I don't see nothing happening. And so his whole motivation was like, if I give my life to the Lord, will I get money? And we were like, okay, no, that should not be your motivation for salvation. However, because the Bible is so awesome, it speaks about finances. And I was able to use Bible stories of like, like the hole in the purse, like where you feel like it keeps coming in and keeps going, and what God had to say about that. Well, that's because, he's like, God was like, you're not building my church. Or like this other principles of finance. I've never used like the teachings of finances that the Bible has to win somebody to the Lord. And because this is obviously a topic that God has set principles for us to live by. This is not meant to be like a whole preachy thing. I was like, well, that's an injustice that you're not getting paid. The Bible says that the worker is worthy of his wage, and God doesn't like injustices. And da 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 and da 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 da. And then I was like, these are the promises of the Lord, though. Like you can't expect to inherit the promises of like God providing for you in riches and wealth or whatever and finances, whatever. You're not even a child of God. I was like, you ain't in this family, cuz. Like, so I was like, but these are, alongside many other goodness and all these things, the blessings of being in the family of God, that they gave their life to the Lord, all of them. And the first thing one of the guys said was, I'm going to go buy a Bible. The guy who was struggling with finances said, I'm using whatever I have and buying a Bible. And the crazy thing about that is like, it's not a community where people just sell Bibles on the street. Like, it's like a pastor has it, and you can't really check his doctrine because the pastor has it, and they only know what the pastor preaches about. So it's like, there is wacky doctrine, there's just craziness, very, very like Catholic Church, like King Henry days, like it's weird. And people can abuse stuff like that. But when you come with the word of God, and you come with truth, and you preach the gospel, that stuff gets dealt with. Okay. Another big deal story, by the way, is we had a leaders meeting in a chief's palace. There's a car. I'm gonna kiss your face. The chief's palace. They were saying palace, but I thought it was gonna be like a little cute little hut. No, it's bigger than my house. The emperor of the Lubalunda tribe, Emperor Kazem, came. He has a whole Wikipedia page. I googled it. He came. And this man, I was like, I don't know who this man is. Like, okay, emperor. I'm very American. I don't understand these things. Apparently, he's a big deal. And I learned this because one of our leaders were like, this is a huge deal. That's rare. Not only did he come, worship the Lord with us, he actually endorsed what Overland was doing in those villages that we were reaching. And he was like, basically like, we got to welcome the gospel in. And the thing that he said about us, just that I always remembered, he was like, I'm humbled to know that God's servants are sleeping on the ground. Because we were camping, and they're bringing the gospel in. And wow, that just really perpetuated the whole like Bible verse. I put that back in my mind, like how Jesus came to serve man, not to be served, but to serve mankind. He was brought so low to bring the gospel, the message that lifts you out of the dunghill. That was my arms are long. Lifts you out of the dunghill. All right. Honestly, like, man, I loved it. Well, the cool thing about my country is like, there's constantly praise music going on. And I don't mean like someone's listening to K-Love like at volume 300 blasting it. I mean like you wake up at 4 because a church is praising the Lord, and then you wake up at 6 because another church is doing a prayer service, and it's like daily. And there was one place we were staying where it was like a church here and a church there, and they would like kind of compete over like who one got a sound system. It was just Congolese people, we're just loud in general, but with the sound system, like we scream into microphones. That's how we are. So that's the whole country. It was constantly like you heard worship, you heard praise, you heard worship, you heard prayer. I was like, oh my gosh, this is good. Like I was actually talking to some couple I met from like Scotland or whatever. Don't ask questions. We just met, and they were like, you know, the whole country's corrupt, it's awful, but the people, they were like, God bless the people. They still have hope. And it's like, and they're Christians too. Their kids were like missionaries, and they were like, man, like the hope that these people have, they thank God for the Lord. So that's the power that we're bringing in. This trip was fabulous. This trip was amazing. Of course, I saw the favor and provision of the Lord in so many areas. Like people were giving to me well after I was fully funded, which just is a blessing to me. I even got to translate in Lingala. I was struggling, but I got to do it, and I prayed to God, like, can I do that? And He did. And it was under interesting circumstances, but it happened. But also it was such a blessing. Like I actually got to see a family member of mine that the last time he saw me, my dad's brother, was when I was 3 months old. So this felt like a huge reconciliation moment for me. And not only that, it really encouraged me because like for me, like I feel like, because you guys know I go on mission trips every year, and I can't not go. I know that's who I'm supposed to be, like an evangelist, and go preach the gospel and travel and go. I just can't not go. And because of that, I thought, okay, I'm about to graduate college, like like finito, done. And I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. So first time release, first time making this known, I actually signed up to do advanced missions training with Overland Missions, because I was like, yeah, I do this every year anyways. Like, and if this is my calling for life, it's best that I actually get trained. And then after that, if I do decide to join this organization, it'll be obviously like in what I do anyways every single year. And I love it. So I want to thank you all for giving, for watching, for caring, for praying for me. Did you see that fly? Anyways, for praying for me, and every single person that played a part in this happening. You know, not only for me, and this means a lot for me, this country, which is like, I've been longing to go back for such a long time, and to go back like this, oh, my camera, is a blessing. It's a blessing. And I'm just going to speak into the mic, and I'm probably just going to show cool videos. Well, it's a blessing to me. So I want to say thank you. I appreciate every seed sown. I appreciate every care given, because you didn't have to, but you chose to connect your seed, and people are saved. Eternities are changed. And not only that, it's not like we're just going to preach the gospel and leaving. The people that are sector missionaries that stay there, that live in this country, are going to go back and disciple the people that we've reached. So this is a stellar work, and this is good ground to sow in, just in case you didn't know. So I want to thank you for giving to me for this. I feel like we're just a cool team, all of us. So I love you all.